live, and we are live from Palm Beach, approximately 1 mile or so from what you see behind me, which is I think we can say now the Winter White House, Ted, right? The president uh, spends a good deal of time there, and it doesn't seem to matter much in terms of his schedule, uh, from what we observe, and we're there on and off fair amount. So it doesn't seem to. Let's say it seems as busy as the White House, uh, except the concentration is a little more solely on him as opposed to the 50 other people you might go to the White House to see, or the executive office building. You might be there to see the vice president. You might be over at the executive office building to see people that run oversee the various agencies. Um, uh, if you were to take a poll of the people in the White House at any given time, how many are there for the president? 20%, 25%. The other 40, 50, 60, 70% are there to see Stephen Miller or the chief of staff, or people on the National Security Council, or blah, 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 on and on and on, right? So the White House is an all transactions operation, whereas there it's pretty much different. Probably 70% are there to see him, and about 30% to see some of the other people that happen to be with him. His chief of staff, very often, very often Secretary of State is there. Very often Secretary of Defense is there. The two envoys, of course, they travel a lot, are there a good deal. Secretary of the Treasury. It really depends on the issues that are coming up. So, yep, it functions very much as a winter White House, more so than any I can remember. I mean, President Bush spent a good deal of time on his ranch.
Yeah.
Not as much as Trump did, but he did build in a situation room, which I happened to see when I stayed there. He built a situation room into it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't as much as Trump. Trump does it more, but Bush did something similar to that in his ranch. I mean, right. He'd like to stay there. He didn't stay there just for vacation, and he would have certain number of his cabinet members down there, and then he would conduct meetings out of the situation room with some of his cabinet members there with him, and some in Washington or other parts of the country.
Right.
Trump does it more regularly, and frankly, it's an easier place to get to for anybody. The Washington to Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, Miami circuit is President Trump. So what is it up now? Probably 20%, but it's a major route.
How do you get to Crawford?
Pardon me?
How did you get to Crawford?
Oh, you flew
somewhere.
You flew into Houston or Dallas, and then you drove for a while. I mean, it was a long drive. It was a long drive.
Yeah.
And it was before most of the cabinet officers had the use of private planes. I know there's a lot of complaints about that, but it was going on in Biden too. The private plane use by cabinet members just keeps increasing with the amount of danger that exists and violence in our society. And stop complaining about it. It just is what it is. You didn't hear me complaining about that during the Biden administration. I thought their trips were useless. I didn't think they had to travel anywhere because they weren't doing anything.
Right.
But if they were going to travel, how do you put the head of Homeland Security on a private plane nowadays and not get him or her killed?
Right.
Or thrown out of the plane at 40,000 feet.
Right.
Or if it's Tom Holman, him throwing somebody out of the plane at 30 or 40,000 feet. Well, today's biggest story goes back to, my history too. I remember my first inauguration as mayor of New York. I used my family Bible, if I recall correctly, the one my grandmother used to write in. red Bible, and a second Bible from my wife's family. My son Andrew assisted me and took the oath as mayor. And if taking the oath as mayor means you're mayor, there were two mayors, because he took the full oath and then thanked the judge for swearing him in.
Right.
It was quite for some people, a very, very warm and engaging experience. For others, a great deal of criticism of me and my wife for being too lenient as parents and letting him take over too much of the show. Most of them I paid no attention to. All of them I paid no attention to. But they're a bunch of moronic jackasses and should pay attention to bringing up their own children. And I might say, in the long run, Andrew Giuliani, who is now the executive director of security for all of the World Cup, has certainly not suffered in life as a result of that experience. If anything, it's made him a bit more confident. I'll tell you a story later about him and President Bush concerning that.
Well, I'm going to play your swearing in. That was in 1993, right?
Yeah, I think it was a somewhat happier occasion for the city. Hopeful, still worried, because we were in worse shape then than we are now under this communist Islamic extremist lover.
Share screen. Right. So this is from excuse me for the delay.
Well, that's okay. But I want to show the nighttime swearing in.
Rudolph William Giuliani.
I, Rudolph William Giuliani,
Do solemnly swear
that
I will support the Constitution of the United States
I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York
and the Constitution of the State of New York
and the Charter of the City of New York,
and the Charter of the City of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Mayor of the City of New York according to the best of my ability. So help me God.
So help me God.
You might know that as soon as it was over, luckily I got to shake hands with Judge Mukasey first. But as soon as I was finished, he got a much bigger handshake, much more of a politician's handshake from Andrew. And then the judge tapped him on the back.
So funny.
Now let's watch a swearing in that looks like it comes out of a Superman movie. You know, what was Superman's enemy? Who he used to live down in the subway.
Lex Luthor.
What?
Or no, I don't know.
Yeah, Lex Luthor. He used to live down in the subway, remember?
Right.
In the caves of the subway.
Well, that was.
I think this is the underworld now taking over. It's quite true.
Right.
Socialism, communism, loving Islamic terrorists, hating Jews and hating America, all symbolized in Lex Luthor's underworld. Here we go. Here's Lex and his Confederates.
Constitution of the United States.
That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the State of New York.
The Constitution of the State of New York.
And the Charter of the City of New York.
And the Charter of the City of New York.
And that I will faithfully discharge.
And that I will faithfully discharge.
The duties of.
The duties of.
The office of.
The office of.
The Mayor of the City of New York.
The Mayor of the City of New York.
According to the best of my ability.
According to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help.
Him.
Well, among other things, Lex Luthor there, which is what it looks like, right? It looks like something out of a horror movie, all dark, in the tunnels of the subway. That's supposed to be the most famous and most beautiful New York City subway station. It is, unless you decorate it that way. Unless you decorate it as the third ring of hell.
Right.
Which is, I guess, appropriate. And now, for the next 4 years, we can watch that as a kind of symbol of what New York is going to be like. Then let's remind ourselves that this is the first mayor of New York to ever take the oath, I would imagine, on anything other than the Bible, but certainly on the Quran, which, the Quran has a euphemistic, tolerated view for the uneducated and for the educated liars. But the Quran is not a book of peace, nor is the religion a religion of peace. The Quran makes considerably more reference to violence than it does to peace. The Quran has at least 111 separate references specifically to war and violence. The hadith or hadiths, which are some authoritative, some not, that interpret the Quran are replete with instructions on warfare, torture, the honor killing of women, the inferior role of women in society. That book on which he's taking an oath is a book that would be considered, if people were being honest, anti-female.
Right.
And you want to say feminist? I don't know, whatever you want to say, against the full rights of women. Probably the most prominent religious book, allegedly religious book in the world, that comes out against the rights of women directly. It's a book that's based, and the religion is based on a principle that's unknown to most Christians, although it really is followed by us and even Jews. I don't think we realize it. It's called abrogation. Abrogation means that because there's so much contradiction in that very poorly written work, which it is a very poorly written book as well. Some where it tends to be poetic, it can be tolerable. Where it tends to be theological, it's vicious. Now, in case you think that I'm in any way exaggerating this, I'm gonna show you some of these. I don't like to just say anything; I like to prove it.
Right.
But this book should have been taken away from him and thrown away. Now, I know the Muslims would go crazy if we did that, but that's what they should do. The reason we are at war with them, or they're at war with us, is because of that book. The idea of war against non-believers, hatred and bad will toward Christians and Jews comes exactly out of that book that he was holding in his hands. No place else. Can I find language in there saying the opposite? Yes, I can. But and can I find it sometimes toward the end of the Quran? Yes, I can. But suppose I tell you that the Quran is not written or laid out in chronological order. Never has, because it's a book of war. It's a manual of war and violence, hatred and discrimination. And it's laid out with the longest verses, except the first. The first verse is really a prayer, a universal Muslim prayer. But the book is laid out in order of longest surah, which is a chapter, first to the shortest. So you can get the last thing you can get the last thing written in the Quran first, and the first thing last, and otherwise it's completely mixed up and completely confused. Was it done on purpose because the book is an extraordinarily offensive book? Yes. Is it one of the reasons that, without any doubt and without any question, the Muslim religion has been more of a warrior religion than all the other religions in the history of the world? Yeah. Has the Muslim religion been spread by and large by killing and warfare and not by conversion? Yes. All of this is true. Was Muhammad married so many times we can't count? Yes. Did Muhammad marry a 5-year-old girl and have sex with her at 9? Yes. Did he kill any number of Jews in mass killings in villages that he was taking over. The Qurani, the Quraysh were his own people that he slaughtered. Yes. Are there references, clear references in the Quran to that, and in the Hadith, and in the Sirah? The Sirah is his biography. His biography is 150 years old, in a way, like it was written maybe 100 years after he died, rewritten and finally resurrected about 150 years after it. We don't know how true it is. All we know is this is what the religion believes. I mean, there's a book out now, and I can't tell you the value of it. I can just say the person who wrote it is an extraordinary scholar, casting real doubt on whether Muhammad existed and was rather created for the purpose of conquest, as the ideal for the purpose of conquest. He's often listed as sort of the man of the year for Muslims. This is the man you want to be, meaning a man who divorces any number of his wives, right? Takes advantage of numerous ones, is a pedophile, slits throats, throws people in graves,
Right.
Admonishes people to kill for their religion, lays out, although it is somewhat intricate, you got to combine the Quran and the Hadith, lays out a paradise of glory for those who commit murder, including the vague but definite references to some large number of virgins, and lays out a paradise that is really kind of like Hefner's former mansion. I mean, it's sex all over the place for the warriors who have to reserve themselves during lifetime. But then when they go to paradise, they can basically screw anybody anytime they want, if they killed for the religion.
Right.
If you don't kill for the religion, you're condemned to whatever their version of hell is, which is going to be populated mostly with us, with the Jews, and we're going directly there. If they don't kill us during life, they put us in hell for the rest. And that's the book on which he took the oath. That's disgusting. That's a sign of what a weak society we are, both morally and intellectually. It's a sign of how Western education has declined to such an extent that most of you don't understand what I'm saying. And probably a lot of you disagree with it incorrectly. I have here something you should get. It's the original Quran, and I have several other versions of it. But translations differ a bit, and some of them are more euphemistic, and you'll see less reference to violence, but you can't escape it. Even in the most euphemistic, sucking up translations of the Quran, they're killing people like crazy left and right. And so is Muhammad. And Muhammad is basically spending most of his time. In fact, almost everything here is about Muhammad. It's not about people. It's not about their behavior. Not even about Allah. It's about Muhammad. This is about as narcissistic as any book can get. Not much in here about loving your neighbor. That doesn't come up at all. Instead, here's the original Holy Quran. Holy would have to be somewhat putting exclamation points or whatever.
Right.
But I'm going to start you with the one that I think lays it really out. And you say to yourself, why would a man become why would a man become mayor of a city made up of Christians and Jews if this is the religion that he believes in? And this is one of the precepts of it toward the very end of the Quran. Now, it's laid out in book 5 chronologically, which would give you the impression that it was early. It's like one of the last 3 or 4 books in the Quran. Here's what Surah number 5, paragraph number 51 says, O ye who believe, take not the Jews and the Christians for your friends. So the guy who just became mayor of New York believes in a religion that tells you, take not the Jews and the Christians for your friends and protectors. They are but friends and protectors to each other. And he amongst you that turns to them is of them. Verily, Allah guideth not a people unjust. Now, that's mild. What I just read to you is probably one of the mildest things in here about hating Jewish people. But just that alone, a man who believes and makes a big thing about his religion, right? A man who believes in a religion where the head of the religion dictates that he shouldn't be friends with Jews and Christians, and he's supposed to be their mayor. This is very, very strange that this book would be allowed without great criticism to be used for a swearing in. How about if I go to a story in it? It's a story that uses probably the greatest or second greatest figure in the Jewish religion, and one of the great figures in the Christian religion, Moses. According to him, of course, he met Moses when Gabriel took him up to heaven. It must have been an interesting thing when the pedophile ended up in heaven. Wonder how many people how much blood he had on his hand then when he went up to heaven. This is Surah 88, Gahisha, and it's the overwhelming event. And it's really located pretty much in the middle chronologically, but it's after Muhammad went bad. Because there are two Muhammads, Mecca Muhammad and Medina Muhammad, the bad guy, good guy, but the bad guy comes after the good guy. And there's a rule of interpretation of this book called abrogation. Abrogation means the later abrogates, wipes out the former. So if they tell you at the beginning to love the Jews, but they tell you at the end not to be friends with the Jews, you're not supposed to be friends with the Jews.
Right.
The last thing Muhammad said is the most compelling. They had to do that because the man was like a politician and a bad one. He was for it before he was against it. So he liked the Christians and he liked the Jews until they said, get the hell out of here with that bill of goods you're trying to sell us. It's a bunch of garbage. You didn't go up to heaven, and you're a crazy nut who has convulsions and looks like you're possessed by the devil. They claim he had epilepsy. You're not even that particularly learned a man. Your Quraysh tribe doesn't even accept you. The Quraysh tribe doesn't accept you. He eventually killed half of them, the Quraysh, his own people. But here's a story that he tells. You know how Jesus told stories about caring for the poor, right, and loving the sinner. And here's a really nice one. This is killing your daughter. This is a good reason for killing your daughter, or for killing somebody's son. Moses said to him when he saw him, this is him, the great Muhammad, or a stand-in for Muhammad, speaking about trying to teach Moses the new religion. Moses said to him, "May I follow you on the footing that thou teach me something of the higher truth, which thou hadst been taught." Meaning, will you teach me more about the higher religion, Muslim,
right?
Not the Jewish religion,
right?
Or Christian, but in this case, it probably would mean Jewish, right?
Right.
The other said, "Verily, thou wilt not be able to have patience with me." And how canst thou have patience about things about which thy understanding is not complete? He says to Moses, like, Moses, you don't know enough to follow this. Moses said, that will be fine with me if Allah so will it. It's showing now Moses a submission to Allah.
Right.
This is the same Moses who stood on Mount Sinai and took the 10 commandments from God, the creator of the universe. He's now listening to Allah. Thou wilt find me, if Allah so will, patient, nor shall I disobey thee. The other said, if thou thence would follow me, ask me no questions about anything until I myself speak to thee concerning it. And certain things go by, and they meet a young man. They like destroy a boat for some reason to help somebody, and then as they proceed, they meet a young man. The next sentence is, he slew him. He murdered him. The guy murdered him. Moses said, hast thou slain an innocent person who slain none? Truly a foul, unheard of thing thou hast done? The Muslim answered, did I not tell thee that thou canst have no patience with me? Moses said, if ever I ask thee about anything else, keep me not in thy company. Then thou would have had full excuse to remove me. Sure doesn't sound like Charlton Heston to me. I think Charlton Heston would have beat the shit out of the guy and arrested him. What do you think?
Yeah.
For murdering the kid.
It appears.
Well, then they go into town and they explain to the town what they had done. And at the end, he answered, this is the parting between you and I. Now will I tell you the interpretation of the things over which I presided. As for the boat, it belonged to certain men in dire want. They plied in the water, but I wished to render it unserviceable, for there was after them a certain king who seized on every boat by force. So he got rid of the boat. He got rid of the boat to save them. That's nice. That's good.
Right.
As for the youth, his parents were people of faith, and we feared that he would grieve them by obstinate rebellion and ingratitude to Allah and man. So we desired that their Lord would give them in exchange a son better in purity and closer in affection. So I killed him. As for then he goes on to explain some of the other awful things that he did. And Moses accepted this. So now this goes on and is interpreted, and we'll go into in greater detail on some of these as we move along, particularly during the year, because you're going to learn the Quran. And you're going to learn what's in it, and this bullshit's going to stop about it being a book of peace. But that's the basis for honor killing. For example, if your daughter is raped and therefore is pregnant outside of a marriage, you can kill her. It's called honor killing. It is permitted by Muhammad and by the book on which Mamdani swore to be mayor of New York and uphold our Constitution. The book is in complete contradiction of every law, every decent thing that we stand for. And it's the reason why, from the day this religion began until today, it's been a source of massive warfare, death, slavery, and just about all things evil. There's very, very little in here about feeding the poor and taking care of the the burdened, and awful lot about taking care of Muhammad. So we have with us Waleed Faris, and there's a really specific thing I want to ask Waleed, because I'm getting an instinct about Iran. And first, I want to wish him, Waleed, are you there?
I am here, Mayor. How are you? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I want to wish our great American Happy New Year and our great scholar. But Waleed, tell me, straighten me out on this. I'm getting a feeling, boy, that's all it is, a feeling over the last 4 or 5 days, because I don't think they cover Iran properly. I'm getting a feeling that there's an awful lot of demonstrations going on there, starting to sound like 2018, back, like not just in Tehran, but in other parts of Iran. And are we looking at, and they seem to be about economic matters more than political or religious. They seem to be about economy, social conditions, all kinds of things like that. Are things starting to get unhinged?
Yes, Mayor. You're an expert also on this issue of Iran and the revolution. This is the combination, the culmination of an uprising that has been going on actually since 1999 with the student revolt on campuses then, and 2009 when our former President Obama betrayed actually the Iranian Green Movement, Green Revolution, yes, which should have been the end of that regime. It wasn't because of the promise of an Iran deal that would get $150 billion. And there are a lot of brokers in this world who made sure that the deal will go instead of us supporting the Iranian people. And the rest, as you know, there have been a series of uprisings, including, you mentioned 18, there was also 19, and of course the Masa Amini revolution for 2 years. It didn't stop really. So what is happening right now, this year, is that there is a wider eruption inside Iran. It starts on campuses. We saw a lot of these demonstrations, but also the workers, the first time in very large numbers. You're right, the economic situation is so bad, the real, the money is going down. So without going into the details, it's the combination of all of the above. Obviously, there is the repression. Obviously, there is the capture and torture of activists, including individuals who were outside the country, were kidnapped. I mean, everything under the sun that this regime, the Khomeini regime, has done, has now culminated into a 7-layer revolt of all layers of society. And I would say yesterday, the fact that the bazaar is the Wall Street of Iran, started strikes, this is no return after that. So we are witnessing the heavy rise. We're going to reach an apex, and then how long it's going to take, Mayor, I don't know. This could be long, but this is irreversible at this point.
Could they remove the Ayatollah? Is that I mean, you know what happens with revolutions. You've seen so many of them. Before the revolution, we never think it can happen, and then afterwards, all the things that made it obvious that it would happen come out.
You're right.
So, could this happen? I mean, the Ayatollah seems to be in an impregnable position because he established it religiously. On the other hand, we know that Iran is not universally religious. The country is not made up of. It's not like a small country where everyone has the same religion and the same Orthodox religion. Yeah. So, can they topple him?
On paper, obviously, he has the might of these powerful militias, as we know, the IRGC, Pasdaran, the Basij, the actual lower-level militia that controls the streets. By the way, our cousins, the Hebrews, as Israel, it's a way to say Israel, have bombarded the system during the 12-day war to a point, Mayor, that they would have needed 7 or 5 more days of targeting the Basij militia. And the Basij militia are basically the political police, which controls people on the ground, execute, torture, etc. Unfortunately, political circumstances, we were convinced here in the US, probably by our friends like Qatar and others, that Israel needs to stop, we can get a deal. Israel needs to stop, we can get a deal. But we gave them few months, and now it's 6 months, 7 months, and the Khomeini regime is not getting a deal. They can't get a deal because any deal proposed by President Trump is going to be to their disadvantage. They cannot play that game. So now what is happening is that the regime understands that if this revolution is going to continue and be as strong as it has started, then they may resort to 2 things. Number 1 is to strike Israel. Whenever they have a problem on the inside, they will just go ahead and strike Israel with the new missiles that they've got. The problem, Mayor, is that they've been rearmed. They have been rearmed, but probably North Korea and elsewhere, but not enough to shield themselves from a potential Israeli strike. If that happens, then the people are unleashed. If the militia is disarmed or hit by any outside force, regardless, even if Israel doesn't intervene and we do not intervene, we are at the other side of that bridge. But it's going to take time.
You think it'll take time because there is no real break between the Ayatollah and the Revolutionary Guard. And
no, yeah.
The Revolutionary Guard is really his biggest protection, right?
It is the protection. It's like he is protected by two walls. The larger wall are the besieged, the popular militia, which is stopping the demonstration to get into the fort, to the bunker. And then if that circle is bypassed, then he has the last block, the last circle, the thickest one, which has a lot of weapons, which is the IRGC. But Mayor, let's draw attention, our viewers and audience, to something that is happening in what is called Artesh, the old regular army. The old regular army is not as powerful as the militias, but if half of it shift and start moving with the people, going to police stations. I mean, I'm just projecting what we have seen in the region for many years. Right. This could tip the balance.
And what's the situation outside of Tehran? Is his support the strongest in Tehran, and then it becomes weaker as you move out from Tehran, or is it mixed?
It's a very interesting question, because if we look at the map today, it's available on Google by now, of where the demonstrations are the most successful, where they actually seized city halls, some police stations are all outside Iran, outside Tehran. So unlike last times where everything happened in Tehran and everything outside was not coming through, now they went to the outside. That's why the workers, the industries, the peasants, everything, all that is on the outside, and they are taking out these police stations. The only question I have, will an order will be given to the IRGC to use all the weapons that they have? That would be a massacre. And we don't guarantee what will happen after a massacre.
Yeah, and that's a decision historically that these dictators have made differently. Some have decided to try to kill all their people, and some have decided it isn't worth it, and either commit suicide or do what Assad did. Assad ran off. There was an article about Assad either yesterday or today, how he's living in luxury in a great Russian condo, but they won't let him out. No. The Russians won't let him out of there. So I mean, he's in a very rich prison, but he's still in a prison.
Yeah, that's the worst of prisons, because he tastes luxury and then he can't do anything about it. Right. But you gave the good example of Assad in 2011. He ordered all the upper class of the military and the security intelligence to a meeting, and he told them, destroy them. And that's the beginning of the Syrian civil war, but it lasted 10 years. So now in Iran, the question is, what will happen to deter the Khamenei from giving such orders? Some are saying, some of my friends, Iranian friends inside Iran, are saying, if more uniforms will show up among the people, if more, let's say, police officers or old army officers will appear, this could deter the other guardians, and that could be, there could be a coup in between. Who knows? Everything is possible. The Pasdaran could call our president or somebody and say, look, we can give you the head of Khamenei, but let's form something interim. Who knows?
Yeah. So what you're basically saying is anything is open right now, but it's a very volatile period. We shouldn't be surprised. We shouldn't be surprised at any number of outcomes.
Absolutely, you put it very well, Mayor. Between now and few months from now, I don't want to say a few days, but a few months from now, we're going to wake up, you and I, and see multiple different scenarios and come and talk about it, because those scenarios may be contradictory, may be different.
How is it affected by, and I'll do my last question, how is it affected by Hamas, Israel, and the kind of ceasefire, but really not ceasefire, because Hamas won't give up their weapons, and Israel says, you don't give up your weapons, we're still going to kill you.
Yeah.
How are the two things affecting each other? It seems like one isn't getting solved.
Yeah.
And the other is turning into these protests. Do they have a connection to each other?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the regime funds Hamas, the regime funds Hezbollah, the Houthis, the Hashid, all of them starts with this letter H. And what Israel has done has really changed the histories of many of these countries by sustaining campaign on the aircraft, on the anti-aircraft missiles of Iran and the radars. And at the end of the day, when our president, overnight in 3 hours destroyed their nuclear facilities, which is like a miracle that I wouldn't have even imagined would happen. 3 presidents before him have not done it. That was big. And of course, the Israelis sustaining bombardment of Hezbollah in Lebanon. But when we come to Hamas, the problem is that the Israelis were at 75%, almost ending Hamas. And then the international community, everybody came with those pressures on for ceasefire. But the president in Sharm el-Sheikh in Sinai said, okay, I have those 20 points. I want everybody to sign on these 20 points. And they did at Sharm el-Sheikh, but Hamas refused to execute. Hamas was supposed to disarm number 2. Number 1 was an Israeli withdrawal. They did. Israel actually abandoned 50% of Gaza that it has liberated, quote unquote. And then Hamas lies. And Hamas lies because the Islamic regime of Iran orders Hamas not to withdraw. You know why? Let me say this, Mayor, on your show. They still think that eventually 2026 that we're going to have major problems here in the United States. Somebody, our nice universities told them, wait a minute. Yeah.
Of course. Well, thank you very, very much, Wally. We'll be back to you very shortly. You have an unbelievable perspective on this, and thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
And Happy New Year.
Yeah, same.
Very valuable person. Waleed is really somebody whose perspective on this has to be taken into consideration. Now, why do I say perspective? Because like everyone else, I mean, the man is probably one of the foremost experts in a regime like Iran or a regime like China or even Russia. You really don't know what's going on. When we come back, we'll talk about the attack on Putin's home. Now, from the first moment I heard that, I mean, look, I don't like to see anybody die. And I don't want to see Putin die. But I just laughed. Nobody made an attempt on Putin's home. He did. So that he could find some kind of an excuse to get out of having to make some kind of an agreement with Trump, and he could blame Ukraine, and he can kill a few more innocent people. And if you can't figure that out, my goodness, that one, I think you get an F in foreign policy if you can't figure that one out. So we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. U.S. Army Major Scott Smiley paid a high price serving our nation. Scott was leading his platoon in Iraq when a blast sent shrapnel through his eyes, leaving him blind and temporarily paralyzed. Scott would become the first blind active duty military officer before medically retiring years later. Thanks to friends like you, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation gave Scott and his family a mortgage-free, specially adapted smart home. Show your support for America's heroes now. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org.
Are you ready for some action?
I'm ready for action.
Get the Elite TV plan only through the portal. 218 channels, and it's only $69.95 a month.
Wow.
Including your free portal.
That's cheaper than everyone else.
Your favorite sports, movies, news, even daytime dramas. We're talking about ESPN, OAN, Newsmax, channels you can't get anymore in certain areas.
Compared to the competition, this is a way better deal.
Endless selection. Not to mention all the free music channels. There's over 700 premium and classic movies all ready to go.
Wow.
Plus, they got catch-up TV that allows you to go back and watch what you've missed or want to watch again. Cut your cable in half and get twice as much for free.
Way more channels for half the cost.
After the first year, the subscription then drops to $57.95 monthly, where you change or upgrade anytime. Go to QUXNow.com and get yours today. Use promo code RUDY. Act fast. These deals are selling out.
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory,
not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep grain, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because they like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're going to go into the roaster and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee.
Yeah. The first one and the last one have to be almost interchangeable. The number 10 most important story of 2026 will be the 2026 elections, and it will be because it comes at the end of 2026, and then it may ultimately be the most important story of 2026, and that is will the Republicans, and I would say it even comes down to this: do the Republicans hold control of the House of Representatives? The House, I mean, the Senate, think they are going to hold control of, and if they don't, the real key is still the House of Representatives, because it's in the House of Representatives that you can impeach him. Now, if you had both, even then you wouldn't be able to impeach him in the sense of removing him, because you need 2/3 of the Senate, and that is inconceivable that either party would get 2/3 of the Senate at this stage in our political history. So the real battle for survival of the Trump program is a control of the House. Without the Senate, it could be more difficult, but not impossible. Without the House, he's going to spend all his time dealing with completely even more frivolous, more ridiculous, and more dishonest attempts to impeach him. Now, the strange result is that might elect a Republican president in 2028, the way it elected him. But don't tell the Democrats that, because they have become, and please, I'm using this word advisedly and correctly, they have become, on this subject, insane. They do things to hurt themselves, like indicting him 4 times instead of just once, using cases that were patently silly, and looking like they were trying to win the election by prosecution, and they were, which followed 7 other equally criminal frauds attempting to destroy Trump. This will just be, one other. So the 2026 election, number 10 most important, and then number 1 most important by the time you get to the end of the year. Right now, number 10. Number 9 most important is probably the World Cup, the FIFA games, which will take place all over the United States. They're going to take place at the very beginning of the summer. And they're going to be, I think, in 13, 14, 15 different venues in the United States, then a few in Mexico and Canada. Forget those. They're not really worth it. And they are going to all have audiences equal to the Super Bowl. So you're going to have about 38 Super Bowls going on, and you're going to have people from all over the world here, some of them crazy. And the security issues are going to be monumental. The excitement is going to be over the top. Pulling this off and doing it right could be one of the great achievements of the United States and continue to reestablish us as the predominant power in the world, which we have already reestablished ourselves as, but this could really cement it, particularly leading into the Olympics that are going to come up 2 years later. So FIFA becomes enormously important, and how it's perceived, how it's handled, and how secure it is. So that's number 9 most important story. Number 8 most important story is a very similar story, but a little different and a little more internal, and that's the 250th anniversary of the United States and how that's celebrated. And here, what I'm concerned about more, there we're talking about security and how we're perceiving the rest of the world. Does it continue the buildup of patriotic feeling, which is growing? What particularly grew this year, and I would consider this also another story that kind of, as part of it, carries over into 2026, and that's Charlie Kirk. And I don't mean the ridiculous, silly, childish, and completely vicious attacks by Tucker and Candace and Fuentes Nazi. Those are just distractions and very sad and sick ones. And my heart goes out to Mrs. Kirk, to her family, and to all the people at Turning Point who are very good people. You don't deserve this. You didn't deserve what happened to you, and you don't deserve what these people are doing to you. And any help you need from me, you have. Which I don't know what that means, but some people think it's helpful. And but the reality is, we have had a real return to religion, and we've had a real return to religion kind of across the board. I mean, I've taken a look at Roman Catholic churches, Eastern Rite Roman Catholic churches, and Greek Orthodox churches, and I've seen larger crowds, and I've seen discernibly larger crowds. And then I haven't been in yet, but I will. But I have gotten reports, numerous ones, from evangelical churches where you're seeing a very similar kind of thing happen. So across the board, the Christian board, you're seeing in America a return to God. In Europe, a lot. In Africa, tremendous, leading to some of the crackdowns by the Muslims who are dedicated to killing Christians as they are Jews. Please understand that. The injunction to killing Jews extends to Christians. It is true, if you look carefully in the Quran, you want to read really carefully the way I do, the hatred of Jews is greater. They even make little ridiculous distinctions, like you got to kill both, but it's more important to kill one. It is among other things, the book that Mamdani took his oath of office on is a Jew-hating book. It's an anti-Semitic book. It's part of the Nazi literature. The Grand Mufti of Palestine was an ally of Hitler and a big supporter of the final solution, the elimination of all the Jewish people, which really the Quran calls for, the elimination of all the Jewish people. Making a little bit of an exception at the end, because Muhammad not only was a pedophile, a mass murderer, he also was a thief. And when he saw he could make some money on it, he decided there could be a little exception if you became a dhimmi and gave him all your money for Jews and Christians. So the 250th anniversary, I'm hoping, will be a resurgence of patriotism, which sort of follows a resurgence of God. They go together. And I almost see the resurgence in churches as also a resurgence of patriotism. So maybe we can see the two join together. The number 6 story, and this could be number 2 just as easily, and that is Israel and what happens there with regard to the peace. The peace, meaning the peace between them and Hamas. And ultimately, more importantly, if that in any way happens, then we move on to the Abraham Accords, and we can start to have a strong alliance in the southern part of the Middle East that is very pro America and American values. the number 5 story, which maybe I should have elevated after tonight, after yesterday and today, but any of these could be elevated. Really, is Iran, and what Waleed and I were talking about. And when I say big story, there's going to be a big story in Iran, no matter what, and it's going to have an impact on what happens to Israel. But if the Ayatollah is overthrown, that becomes one of the biggest stories of the decade and maybe of the century, because he's been a menace since the day he took over, and particularly to Americans. He is a mass murderer of Americans, and he is the embodiment of the book, the Quran. He's an embodiment of what the Quran teaches, and what Mamdani swore on. His defeat will be the elimination, really, of any pretension to a worldwide domination by Muslims, which is starting to look to some people as possible. Remember, there are 1 million Muslims in New York City. Their population may be larger than the Jewish population. I didn't say they're all citizens, nor did I say that it mattered about voting in New York. Since New York voted that non-citizens can vote, although that's been declared unconstitutional. But New York does seem to be able to get around things like that. Like, it's amazing how for 170 years, Republicans have not gotten a single dead person's vote. Not one. Republicans just do not know how to campaign in graveyards. So the number 4 story is Ukraine, Russia. Not only because of the humanitarian nature of this, these Ukrainian people are being killed for nothing now. And Putin's scam with him, his house being attacked. Come on, Putin. What do you think we are, fools? We're not Biden and we're not Obama. We know the way you looked at Obama. I could look in his eyes and he would say to himself, what the hell am I doing? I'm a really tough KGB murderer, and I got this crazy little half Muslim jackass with me who was a community organizer. He organizes communities. I kill people. And by the way, I know he's a communist because I have all the records. So what happens there is enormously important. A big victory for Putin is very bad for us. Minimizing that victory is very, very important. I don't know that we have the capacity to get it to a defeat. We don't at this point. But we do have the capacity to minimize it greatly, particularly given the high expectations that he's now created for getting Donbass and so many other things. If we get that down to a minimum and make him have to accept some very, very strong security guarantees that prevents any further encroachment by Russia on any place else, that could turn into as much of a victory as is capable and realistic, and enough to turn the sentiment around.
Well, actually, I think I have a short clip. You predicted this the other day.
Yeah, I just think the people who.
So they had a nice little. So we'll fast forward here to. We were able to ask a nice question.
So Dr. Maria pointed out, of course, she is a doctor and she watches these things. Does BB look a little gaunt? Little, like he's lost a little too much weight?
So that's something, yeah, you'd be in a better position to, having seen him before. This is my first time in person.
I always look at both of them for their health. And BB is always the healthiest looking guy. But today I wasn't happy. Please don't be angry at me, BB. I shouldn't have said that.
Right.
Just as your friend, I should have told you personally. President looked good. President looks, as they say in Italian, Spanish, a couple of other Latin languages.
Right.
Strong as, or even in.
So this is me asking
strong
the question. For the state of Israel. For the state of Israel.
We have a great relationship. Most other.
I asked the question to both of them. I wanted the president to speak about the importance of America having.
A lot of these phony socialist Democrats talk about the great immigration of the 19th century and the early 20th century. They came to, these people would sacrifice their lives for the education of their children. You think if money came for the education of a Jewish kid, an Italian kid, an Irish kid, a German kid, a Polish kid, in one of the Hispanic kid, in one of those neighborhoods, that the crooks would steal it and become millionaires? Get out of here. Even the mafia had to give back to the poor in those days. They didn't later, but they did then. Remember, this is their book, sweetheart. Nothing much here about taking care of the poor. A lot about taking care of Muhammad. Not much about taking care of the poor. And not much going on in Iran taking care of the poor. A lot about taking care of the Ayatollah and all his henchmen, like in here. This is a complete hoax on us that we play into because we're nice. Oh, it's like other religions. It's mostly really good people. Just a few of them are mass murderers. Just a few of their countries kill women and stone them. Yeah, and exactly how many Muslims speak out against that? You can count them on your finger, babes, and they're all subject to being killed. Yeah, how much are they doing? How much are the Muslims doing? All those good ones and nice ones about changing this. They'll what I'm saying now, they'll go lie about. I don't care. I mean, I've been saying it since I was a kid. You know why? Because since I was a kid, it was true. The truth didn't change. You just all got snowed. Bullshitted. Lied to. Misled. Brainwashed. And now this guy takes the oath of office on a Quran. The number 2 story. It can be immigration, but in a different way. So immigration's been the number 1 story in many ways, with the 300,000, 400,000, 500,000, million, 2 million, 3 million coming in per year, right? Well, nobody came in this year. Trump went from
Negative number.
Trump went from 1.5 million to 0. Negative, yeah. We're getting rid of more people than the big question is going to be how the internal necessity to remove criminals and violent, vicious murderers and rapists, and how that goes. Not just the reality of it, but in fact the what we like to call the narrative. You know, the what the American people see and hear. And it's interesting. We control different narratives. Let me see if I can give you 2 examples of how that's true. This whole situation in Minnesota, several liberals have decried, was really created by a conservative narrative that was brilliantly spun out by Nick Shirley. I'm thinking of Sauter. Nicholas Shirley and this guy, Dave. Brilliantly done. 130 million people have watched it. I mean, that's more than people have watched CBS in the last 50 years. Now, and they make it into like they can't quite. In the New York Times, when they point this out in an article yesterday or today, they say this is the new conservative weapon. This use of conservative podcasters and to spin this out. They don't quite call it a false story. They do call it an exaggerated story. And they say much of this was in the papers for years. Now, that's not true. It is true that you can't escape the fact that an awful lot of Somali crime and fraud has been in the papers from the day they got here, because that's what they do. I mean, 50, 60 have been convicted in the last, in 70 or 80 were convicted in the Biden administration. You couldn't escape it. If 70, 80 were convicted, it probably should have been 700. But he broke it open to an extent that people had no idea that some of these schools were sitting there for 5 years and nobody ever showed up. And they pulled in 10 million, 20 million. The amount of the original 1 billion was a shocker, Rooney. And then all these people came forward and it added up to 9 billion. And a lot of people think it's going to go way over that. And then Maine broke out and Ohio broke out and Colorado broke out. I'm sorry, California too. And that's where it really is amazing. But they say this is like, they make this into, the issue here is not what this means to our social welfare programs in America and what they are and what they represent. What it is another interesting Republican connivance to make social welfare look bad. How can you make it look worse than it is when you go to a school for 300 kids and they've pulled down $9 million that year, and everybody in the neighborhood said no kids have shown up for 12 months? Or you go to a feeding program where kids are supposed to go and get food, and there's been no food given out there in 2 years, which means those kids starved. You want to get worse than that? I don't. So that's where Republicans do dominate. Now here's where the Democrats still dominate. They still dominate on the legacy media, which repeats and repeats and repeats and repeats and repeats and repeats and repeats. People distrust it more than ever before, but still a good 30, 40%, maybe 50% are still influenced by it. That's way down from the 70, 80% it used to be. It's still a lot. And they are convinced that Trump is being too harsh with the immigrants. And they're convincing them of that. A majority of the American people now are not happy with Trump's policies. They should be making him a saint over it. And the idea that, oh, gee, you shouldn't throw out the ones who came in here illegally, but they were good boys and girls. Well, I don't know if you shouldn't. That's a hell of a debate to have. I mean, should they be treated differently? Yes. Should there be a little more consideration? Yes. Should it be done more gently for them? Yes. But at the sacrifice of getting rid of the criminals? No. No. I mean, if it's impossible to do that because there are so many, then the most important thing is to get those damn rapists out of our country. I don't want any more American women raped by some guy from Venezuela. Sorry. Bad enough a woman's got to get raped by a guy from America. We got to put up with one coming from Venezuela. That's priority number one. One of the things you learned if you've ever governed effectively, as I have, is you got to set priorities. You can't do everything. I'm not going to go into a group of 1,000 illegals, of whom some very large percentage are social predators, and not come out with some who aren't social predators or haven't been convicted of it yet. They may just be here 5 months. They haven't had a chance to get caught for it. You think they get caught for every rape they do? You think they get caught for every theft they do? You think they get caught for every drug deal they do? You think they get caught for every human trafficking they do? Of course not. If it's 1 in 20, it's a lot. That's the way it goes with criminals. So when you do a roundup like we've been doing, which you have to do to protect our people, you're gonna maybe catch some otherwise good people, but for the fact that they came in illegally in the net. And we can have a difference of opinion about what happens to them. It is perfectly legitimate to argue they should be treated not as difficult a way. It's also perfectly reasonable to argue they caused a problem, and we don't have the resources to make that distinction. And we're not going to sacrifice getting rid of the murderers, the rapists, the child molesters in order to help the people who came in illegally. Those are two rational, reasonable, humane arguments. I feel very, very sorry that my church only understands one side of that, because as a result of that, they're getting an awful lot of women beaten, raped, harmed, and hurt by helping, in very, very often, to make a lot of money bringing in these people, some of whom do that. And they do have a responsibility to the good people also, not just to the people who are coming in illegally. And if this country has limited resources, as all countries do, and we can't give a place to everybody, and you just can't come in and take it, then we have to set down some rational principles for how we make a decision. And I think the rationale of the decision is easy to figure out if you have half a brain and you have half a little patriotism and you ever read Abraham Lincoln. Let's take them on how much they love America. I didn't say on the richest, on the smartest, on that. That's okay. Well, I don't want some rich guy who hates America. I don't want some smart guy who hates America. God forbid. Give me people who love America and like to work. You get me people who love America and like to work, we're going to get the full gamut from genius to average person who works his ass off. That's what makes a society. Big group of average, decent, good people who work their ass off. A couple of geniuses, a couple of really smart ones, a couple of can-doers, and a few mistakes. As few as possible. That's what we've been doing beautifully. And we ended up with the greatest country on earth. Let's keep it that way. So I think that's number two story. How does immigration go? And I guess now in the modern country we live in, how is it perceived? And then finally, the economy. And that's why that's the number one story, or it's the 2026 election, because it's the same story, isn't it? Everything I talked about is enormously important. And if they all go well, Trump is going to be very, very popular. And if they go poorly, he's going to be unpopular. But it's quite conceivable they could all go well and the economy goes wrong and you can get killed in 2026. Or they all go wrong and the economy goes well and he does great in 2026. It is true, and we hate to quote Clinton, but the idea that the economy is stupid is really true. And when I mean economy, I don't mean economy 101 at either a great university or a phony one like Harvard. What I mean is how do people feel about their lives? And it's beyond the economy. Maybe we'd even call it quality of life, which is what I used to call it as mayor. How do they feel about their lives in America? Do they feel they're getting better? Do they feel hopeful? Do they feel reasonably secure? You never feel totally secure. If you do, you're insane. If they feel all of that, then the incumbent, who is a good person otherwise, wins big time, the way Ronald Reagan did in Morning in America, or even the way Nixon did, or the way I did. But it's the economy. My case, New York, a city, a little different. It also was crime, but it still was the economy. Our economy turned. And the crime stuff they liked a lot. They were very happy about it, and they remember it a lot. But I'm going to tell you, deep down, it was the reduction in taxes, the reduction in the mob tax, the fact they could buy things cheaper, the fact they had more jobs. It was down like half. You go from like 10% to 7%. The fact that half the number of people on welfare were now working. Crime became the newspaper story. It became an important story because it was so prolific in New York, and because New York was considered impossible to change. But the bigger thing politically was the economy, and it will be this year. So there's a lot of predictions both ways on the economy. I'm going to tell you mine. The economy is going to improve. incrementally all throughout the year. And by the time we get to mid-year, it's going to be doing just fine. The president's greatest strength, among some unbelievable strengths, including peacemaker, is his innate understanding of the American economy and the miracles that he did in 17 and 18 already are going on. You're just not seeing them. I mean, we just ended up with pretty close to a record stock market, and that's a bad economy. Lower inflation than in a long time. The one place weakness, jobs, but more productivity. That may be something we're going to have to redefine and look at differently and figure out a way to compensate for, because this is a necessary and absolute result of AI and other forms of technological improvement. So I do think that it's going to be the economy, and we're going to be following it all year, right, Ted? Yeah. So
with the elections to end the year.
So let's see. Quick items to understand. In Minnesota, they discovered that you can register on the day of an election, Ted, and you don't have to prove anything. You can just have one person come in and bring in 8 people, and they can vouch for them. Gee, you think maybe the Democrat crooked Somali leaders do that?
Right.
And we got a lot of Somalis that aren't citizens who voted.
Right.
What do you think?
Right.
Just like in Georgia, that never happened. Giuliani's such a liar. He's such a big liar. The president's such a liar. Raffensperger, what they're doing to poor Raffensperger, go find 11,000 votes. Gee, Raffensperger, that would have been pretty easy out of 315,000, huh? You scum. Oh, by the way, I clarified today, it's actually 600,000, but who wants to fight? When Trump, won the election probably by 80, 90,000 votes, and it was stolen from by 2 Republicans in Georgia, the governor and the secretary of state who's running for governor, who shouldn't be elected. Yeah, they used to say dog catcher, but dog catcher is too important a position.
Right.
I like dogs too much to have Raffensperger. Like Romney, he'd probably put him on the top of the car. I think he's that kind of Republican anyway, right?
Yeah.
Isn't he? Isn't he a rhino, pino, whatever they call him?
Right.
Well, the biggest problem the New York Post sees in this election of a Muslim mayor is that Muslims hate Jews. Did you ever take a poll? Ever see the polls of Muslims? And it's like 80%, 90%.
Wow.
So, when we talk about it's the Muslims who are the bad people and the killers and the ones who follow the letter and the law of the book that should be thrown out. I got a different issue, my Muslim friends who don't do that and who make up the law-abiding, wonderful Muslims. How come you're not speaking up with me? Why aren't you explaining to us about the Quran and how it has to be changed and about the terrible things that Muhammad taught you? And that he just isn't the example that you want your children to follow? When that happens, we make the change.
Right.
Now, let me see. I want to make sure I got them all here. We talked about Iran, Ukraine. They're still open. The fact that Trump might go visit Kyiv. Venezuela, it's confirmed that they have 5 hostages. And last night, we will finish by saying last night we had a wonderful time. At the New Year's Eve party. We saw the president and Mrs. Trump and Melania Trump, who looked both
fabulous.
Both looked fabulous, like a president and a first lady should look. I mean, she looks like more than a first lady should look. She looks like she's an extraordinarily beautiful and very kind and good woman.
Right.
We saw some of our good friends, of course, a lot of our palsy wowsies.
A lot of great people
who were doing a great job. Secretary Noem.
She was there, yes.
Yeah, and she had Secretary Rubio.
He was there.
And then many of his supporters.
Right.
And people who were part of the White House.
Right.
And there he got $3 million for a painting of Jesus. Donated. The proceeds were donated to the sheriffs and to St. Jude's Hospital, was it? One of the hospitals, right?
Yep.
Yeah. But it was a painting that young lady made of our Lord Jesus Christ in 5 minutes. Yep. Do we have a picture of it? I mean, I wish I had $3 million.
Yeah, well,
he's doing the auction. He could have been an auctioneer too, and he gets that last.
But I saw this. She did something for us last night. She created a work of art. It was so incredible. I said, "Could you come and do it again, right, Judge?" And she was again. Do you know this? I said, "No, let them stand on the floor." They want. Not one person left the floor. You notice that, John, right? He's the one putting on this big shindig tonight.
Was he talking to John Rich? John.
John, who put the event together.
We're 2,000,005. Anybody else?
Well, John Rich looked great.
John was there.
2,750,000. Who is it? Oh, I know who that guy is. He's got plenty of cash. But listen, you don't want to know about some of these guys. 2,750,000. Do I hear 3 million? Do I hear 3 million? It's going to St. Jude's. It's going to the sheriff's office, sheriff's department. Huh?
Where did he say? I didn't catch it.
Sheriff's department.
And what was the other?
St. Jude's.
Yes, I thought so. Good.
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yes. Don't do it if it's too much. Don't do it if we have to see a chapter filing tomorrow morning.
Chapter filing tomorrow.
One of our outstanding Palm Beaches that had filed for chapter bid too much. So we have 2 million.
All right.
We have 2,750,000. Do we have?
You got the 3, right?
Anything else? Any other bid? I want to thank you. Come on up on the stage. Come on up here. Come on up.
Oh, that was.
Well, we'll get you a photo tomorrow of the painting. Which, believe it or not, I mean, do you remember, Dr. Maria, how long it took her to do that painting? Was it 15 minutes? It was a beautiful painting of Jesus. I mean, I don't know paintings, and I don't know what would be worth 10 million or 15 million or 20 million, whatever.
Two great charities, though.
But man, was it great. Wow. Oh, it was a beautiful New Year's. Oh, there it is. There it is. Haunting eyes. Look. She did it right there. Well, we were all watching. So thank you, Mr. President, for all that money for St. Jude's and for the sheriff and the people who need it. Thank you for the contribution of that great work of art, too. So let's pray for the people of Israel and the people of Ukraine, who we spoke about tonight, and the people of Iran, who we spoke about at great length and will be following, because we kind of have an inkling. Let's see what happens. We're going to, I'm sure, pick up on what's going forward both in Ukraine and Israel over the next several days. It seems like every day more and more is coming out about the social welfare fraud, which takes you ultimately to the issue, isn't this really an unraveling of the programs that began with the overrated President Franklin Roosevelt? Isn't this really an unraveling of those programs that were supposed to cure the Depression, did not? The Depression was worse in 1939 than it was when Roosevelt came in, but instead ruined the American work ethic. So let's see. plenty to go. Pray for us here in America, of course, that we have a great 2026. And God, pray that you give us the grace so that we do the work that we're supposed to do that, because it's our work that you're looking for. And it's motivating us that we're looking for, and also taking care of our president, who's been so great to us and whose life you saved. So we'll see you tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow again at 8 on X. Next week we'll be back, and Lindell TV will be back from a religious week off to celebrate one of the most important holidays in the history of the world. And but tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, and we'll take you through a little more of this Quran stuff. And then I think we're going to do a podcast on that, so you can have it in one place, so you can understand what you've been fooled about for so long. Not all of you, I'm sure, but many of you. God bless America. It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able to apply